I may be coming down there in November. You don't know. I got to figure out where to go if things go wrong. Uh,
Don't say that. I mean,
yeah, I don't know if there'll be places to hide. I don't know.
exactly. I mean, anywhere else in the world is on fire.
Yeah.
More than the US.
Well, Canada's pretty nice. I could do that. Although they're a little close. I don't know if they have, I don't know if that'll happen, if that'll, yeah, anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all
Let's not turn this into a political smash.
right.
Okay. Stephanie, do you have it on? So that
And yes, it's already recorded. And yeah.
okay. So that if people start jumping in. Okay, great. I think we're gonna have to start with the next 5 minutes tops uh,
Yes.
with whoever it's in because of time limit. Not the Zoom time limit, but because your time, our time, so that
Right.
everybody. Okay, we have
Yeah, ready.
9 already. Let me
Yeah, they're
see.
entering.
Okay, we already have 5 people in. We have Alejandro, Carolina, Dariana, Mario, Valeria. Thank you for coming, guys. We're gonna start in the next 4 minutes.
Hmm. Mm.
Okay, we have Tactic with us. We're honored. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be very good to have these masterclass for everybody to use. So I'm guessing you guys gonna put this in your social media or so?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, we'll take a recording and put it out there to the world. That would be great.
So,
Okay. Mm. Oh, Victor Garcia says hi from Germany. Wow, Germany is like in the evening there, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning.
yeah. So Alejandro is saying that the chat is disabled, Stephanie,
Oh,
and he wanted to say hi.
okay. Oh yeah, it's disabled because they have to do it in the Q&A.
Okay, great. Just tell them then whenever you can. Ask them to use the Q&A so that you can manage that.
Yes.
Can they hear you?
Yeah, it would be nice to ask to make that question.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so Alejandro, is the chat is already enabled. If you want to try it, please let us know. Okay. 2 minutes to go. That's a nice logo, Peter. What's that?
Thank you. We had a great artist named Tali who designed our logo 8 years ago, and you'd have to ask her because I kind of forgot the how we generated it or what the idea was, but she had a whole story behind it. So I'd have to look her up and have her tell me about how she arrived at it.
Great, great. That's a very important part of the companies, and some people doesn't take that into account. I mean, you
Well,
go,
yeah, I used to agonize over all those things, but this time I've made it more of a group effort and admittedly delegated it. But these things, it works, it prints well, so I'm happy with it.
great, excellent. Okay, people, we have 1 minute to go, and we're going to start. So just hang in there. And we have Rafael, Raymond, Carolina with us. Thanks for coming. Okay. 6:05 in Central America. So we're going to start. Hello, everyone. Are you ready to dive into the magic of AR storytelling? This is the time. This is the technology that has the power to blur the lines between reality and artistry, transforming everyday spaces into vibrant playgrounds. So imagine boosting customer service and customer engagement by 80%, cutting training times in half, or crafting marketing campaigns that leap off the screen and into the real world. This is the transformative power of AR, and today we are here to share with you real success stories. So I'm going to pass it on to Peter Oberdorfer, who is the founder and president of Tactic, our main guest today, a very important guest. And after his intro, I'll present the rest of the team, and we're going to switch to Spanish. So, Peter, please take the lead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. I am, as was said, I'm from Tactic. We are an experiential agency in California and up in the US. And I'm joined today by Miguel Diaz Rivera, who's our lead art director at our company. I am the president in ECD. We've been around for about 8 years, I'd say, and coming on our 8th year this year. And we generally specialize in augmented reality. So what that means, I'll be going into, but we do all manner of interactive and experiential type of creations here. But because of demand and because of interest, we've gotten more and more into augmented reality and mixed reality applications. And most of those that we do, you can go to the next slide, Miguel. Most of what we do is augmented reality activations for brands. And most of that is on mobile devices. And that sort of came out as a matter of convenience, but the more we got into it, the more we got into it. And so, we kind of perfected our craft as much as possible and explored kind of the way this is developing. And it's one thing that's fun about it for us is that it's always changing. The medium is always changing. New devices are coming out. New software platforms are always coming out. And so we adapt with the times and we continue to innovate around what's happening next in this field. But what's important to us is having that be monetized. And that means doing things that are relevant to marketing and advertising and for brands. So as they are our patrons in this, and this allows us to be storytellers and designers and innovators in this field and gives us, sort of a subject matter to tell our stories around. So next slide, Miguel. So what I'm going to do first is just show you a little bit about the work because it's always better to show than to tell. And so I think we're going to just run through a sizzle reel. We may not get full audio on this for everybody, but you'll get an idea of what it is we do. And maybe you've even seen some of our work in other contexts. So go ahead and play it. And I may talk over it a little as I see stuff that inspires me to do so.
I'm gonna need you to pour me a glass for that. There you go. Mark County Red goes hard on any celebration.
Well, in my shop, it also goes fine with a small cheese plate.
If you're obsessed with the other palettes in Line Venus family, or if you're new to here. I've got you totally covered. I wonder where the wind might take me today.
Great. Next slide. And we'll be sharing that link, by the way, so you all can look at the work and be able to see and hear it more clearly if it's not going through the Zoom call that clearly. But we've worked with a lot of different brands, these and others, and we work on a continuing basis with some of these brands where we create a portfolio of experiences that continues to grow over time, and that just creates a user base for the augmented reality apps that we create for them, which are all activated off of packaging and end up giving them a boost in their sales and brand identity. Next slide. So I should start a little bit about what augmented reality is. And, like a simple sort of blanket explanation of it would be that augmented reality is the is the ability to experience the real world with a visual overlay of digital information or objects that aren't from the real world anchored in that world. So, and that all happens through people's mobile devices in this case. So, you'll have a live feed of, the world through your camera, and then you'll see things in the environment that aren't really there. Those of you who are familiar with like Pokemon Go and things like that, you have some or face filters on Instagram, you have some, indication of what augmented reality is. Well, in this case, we do the same sorts of things, but we anchor our augmentations onto products. And over time, this has evolved as the way we deliver this. It originally, when we first were making augmented reality apps, they were apps that you go to the App Store for and download, like from, Google Play or from Apple's App Store. And then you would install it on your phone and have to open it and then point at the object. And that was a bit laborious. But back in the day, 6 or 7 years ago, that's what people were willing to do to see these experiences. Now things are a lot faster. There's more awareness. People aren't willing to download branded apps as much. So generally speaking, we create these experiences on the web. And it's just like what it sounds like. It's a website that has the ability to have an app-like experience. It's a website that can open your mobile phone's camera from the browser and train it to look for certain objects in the environment that are these products and packages. And when it sees them, it'll create an augmentation on those objects that it's looking for. And so here's an example of Almond Breeze here, where, when you go to the Almond Breeze AR site, and people can arrive at that site a variety of ways. They can get a link from social media. They can have a QR code on the packaging that sends them there. When they point at the object that it's looking for, you see we have the packaging seamlessly open up, and we have a portal inside into an almond orchard in this case. But we can do a whole variety of different things. Next slide. There are different types of augmented reality that I referred to briefly. One is social AR, and that is like, Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook, and TikTok and others have augmented reality platforms that you can develop for within each of their respective platforms, but are exclusive to each of their platforms. And those are distributed through their ad network. Some of them are quite good, and they have really easy to understand editors where you can set up projects within them and put content within them. But for one, they don't trigger off of packaging. And two, they're exclusive to whatever platform that you design them for. So if you make something for Instagram and Facebook's platform, which is called Spark AR, it only works on Instagram and Facebook. And so generally speaking, those are used for like face filters or location-based experiences and not for product-based augmentation. And what's more, to get those to distribute to a wide variety of people, you have to pay to get those out there. The other formats are formats that we tend to work in more often, and those are native AR apps, which we used to develop using game engines and things like that to create them. And then we would make an app that you would download from the App Store. And then since then, as web AR has gotten more and more capable, we've tended to do almost, I'd say 95% of our activations are done on a platform called Eighth Wall, which is the preeminent web AR platform for development. And it's just like an app in terms of what you can do with it. You can do animations, you can do games, you can do 3D things. All of these things that are possible in a native app, we can do over the web. And what's great about it is all it takes is somebody having a link to that web address. You can get people to those web addresses very easily through the shorthand of using a QR code, which is just a way that your phone can direct immediately to a website, or people can share a URL or a website, domain directly to another person. And when they click on it, it opens and they're in the app. So that way you don't need to download an app. It's just an immediate download from the web. And that works across all browsers and most every device that's out there in terms of smartphones. And so we use that quite a bit. And like I said, the preeminent platform for development on that is a platform called Eighth Wall, which is a set of, if you're familiar with the web, it's a set of JavaScript libraries that for commercial use are licensed, but are available for people to play with if they just want to do things non-commercially. You can learn how to develop on them and make projects non-commercially with it for free. Next slide. And like I said, I think this is sort of redundant, actually. I kind of went over some of this. Social AR is a bit of a walled garden. The native AR apps require you to download the app and install it on your phone, and people are more loath to do that as time goes on. I don't know about you guys, but I have like just a few apps on my phone now, and I don't download tons
Everybody's
of
avoiding that, yeah.
Yeah. And then for web AR, people are willing to click. And if you click and you have a great experience, then you kind of have broken the fourth wall at that point. You have a cool experience. We like to load these things, to have the story up front, to have the experience up front. And once people have that experience, they're much more willing at that point to be drawn into the rest of what the brand has to offer. And they'll poke around the offerings within that web AR app. They'll look at brand information and product information. They'll sign up for things and all that if they've had a good experience up front. So that's usually how we set up these apps, is to lead with the experience. We kind of say like lead with the candy and then they can eat their vegetables later, and I think that's the way to bring people in. And I've seen all kinds of things, said about how experiential marketing is a more effective way of marketing. We believe wholly in that. And then the other part of it is, with each of these activations, you're getting somebody who is doing it on a product, on packaging. So they're holding the product in their hand and having experience directly one-to-one with that brand through their device. And what's great about mobile phones these days is you've got so much capability. People just use it for texting or social media. The phones can do a lot. They're like little micro supercomputers, and they've got great sensors on them. They got great screens, and they're just made for augmented reality. In a lot of ways, they're more capable augmented reality devices than, the Meta Quests and things like that are out there, because they're so flexible in the way they can be used. And then when you think about it, it's the one thing that people don't leave their houses without is their phone. Phones are ubiquitous everywhere. And so your people are bringing this incredible experiential device everywhere they go. And if you can have a call to action on the packaging and things like that and get people to trigger things out in their environment that give them these experiences, they have a way of bonding with those experiences. So and then hopefully taking home the packaging that's involved and bringing the product home and buying it and all of that. So anyway, next slide.
Peter, let me ask you something that I think is very appropriate for
Yeah.
everybody today. When you say that you are a true believer that that kind of experience will bring a more deep connection with the customers, you're talking out of experience of how many years? I mean, people would like to understand the basis of your opinion. How many years have you been using this?
Sure. I mean, we've been doing this for better than 8 years with this type of product-based augmentation. I guess our first activation was in 2014 on a bottle of Cuervo tequila, and that was a brand promotion then when phones were just on the cusp of being able to represent these things with fidelity. I think it was like the iPhone 4 or something like that. And, was sort of, that was the current model, and early Samsung Galaxy phones and things like that. So it was kind of an early adopter thing at that point, but it got a lot of buzz just out of the novelty of that at that point. But I think, with any of these technologies, ChatGPT and all these other things, people are very, they just vacuum up new technology and they get more and more, the audiences get more and more sophisticated. So we move with the times and we try to adapt these new tool sets as they come out. And I think, as these things are moving, we see a lot of convergence in things like AI image generation and web-based platforms like Eighth Wall and these types of mobile-based activations that have more and more awareness of where you are at any point in time. And, they can map the world around them and not just the products in front of them. So the sensors get better and better. And it makes what we do in some ways easier because there's more and more capabilities. And we try to just have fun with it. And, in the end, we're just storytellers. My background is in feature films, and I worked 15 years in feature films, largely as a visual effects supervisor for Hollywood movies prior to this. And now I sort of see this as an extension of the type of visual effects that we would make for a movie like The Matrix or Spider-Man or something, where we're creating these illusions in real life and not just on the movie screen. And this allows us to kind of open up what we want to do as the technology gets better and better. So the challenges that are in front of us in terms of how can we make this spectacle or how can we make this, really scale or things like that are getting easier for us because of these devices and the mobile platforms and software that go with them.
Yeah.
Great.
Peter, one question from Victor. He's saying, which software are you used to make these experiences and which services are you used for the streaming?
Sure. So I'm going to turn it over to my associate, Miguel, who's going to
Okay.
take you through all of that. And we can address, Miguel, you can also maybe address the streaming question specifically, because that may not be in your stack.
Well, it will be, because once we get to that point of software, on the next slide, we're going to be talking about that specifically,
Oh,
and
perfect.
get to that question about what software to use and what available softwares are there for them to use, not only paid, but also free as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to do my best to understand what's being said, but I'm not bilingual. So I've gone through the deck with them in English, though, so I vetted it thoroughly.
And you're not gonna fix that easily, but
All right.
I'm
Bueno,
learning. I'll learn anyway. Okay. Thank you.
pero ahora vamos a continuar hablando de la realidad aumentada en la web, pero vamos a estar hablando sobre el flujo de trabajo, en cómo se realiza este tipo de trabajo que nosotros hacemos. Como todo trabajo, uno empieza con la planificación, que tú tienes que definir el propósito y el objetivo de lo que va a ser la experiencia. Uno usualmente, como nosotros de compañía, diseñamos ideas y conceptos que se lo entregamos al cliente, al igual que el cliente, pues tiene ideas que ellos quieren hacer y conjunto con ellos podemos desarrollar la idea junto en esa colaboración para poder hacer la idea hacer realidad. Cuando ya tengamos esa idea concreta, ahí es cuando empezamos a hacer la creación del contenido, que ahí puede ser los diseños gráficos, la interfaz del usuario, modelos en 3D, las animaciones, para poder poner todas estas cosas en el mundo real. Conjunto con el contenido que nosotros estamos creando, también estamos desarrollando la aplicación con ingenieros que van desarrollando la aplicación basada en la web que admitirá la experiencia de la realidad aumentada. Y creando la realidad aumentada en la web, ellos utilizan códigos como HTML, CSS y JavaScript, que eso también se trabaja conjunto con el contenido para que todo fluya muy bien. Tan pronto todo eso ya esté a un estado bastante finalizado, ahí es cuando empezamos a hacer las pruebas y los ajustes, en donde se realizan pruebas exhaustivas para garantizar que la realidad aumentada funcione correctamente en diferentes situaciones. Y estar seguro que cuando la cámara de, del teléfono vea la etiqueta, que siga la etiqueta lo mejor posible para que no hayan errores al final. Y eso de prueba y ajuste se hace junto a nosotros, la compañía, al igual que con el cliente, por si acaso hay y diferentes gente que está trabajando con el proyecto para estar seguro de que todo el mundo, pues, porque como mucha gente usa diferentes teléfonos de diferentes modelos, sea viejo o sea nuevo, pues hay a veces problemas que aparecen en cosas con teléfonos anteriores que no hay en teléfonos nuevos, o uno siempre tiene que estar bien seguro que funcione todo eso muy bien. Y tan pronto se termina las pruebas y los ajustes, ahí es cuando se publica la aplicación y con todo y eso, uno siempre está estando pendiente a la aplicación por si acaso hay algún problema que pasa a lo largo de cuando esté publicada y se hagan algún ajuste que sea necesario para hacer la aplicación. Estos tipos de proyectos usualmente pueden tomar de 8 a 16 semanas, dependiendo, pues, lo complejo que puede ser el proyecto en sí. Ahora, en la próxima página vamos a estar hablando, para contestar la pregunta al compañero, que las herramientas que nosotros utilizamos y también puede utilizar gratis, que también es bueno porque así, pues, a veces los programas pueden ser un poquito costosos y aquí, pues, queremos demostrarles diferentes herramientas que pueden utilizar gratis para poder hacer este tipo de trabajo también. Y pues, vamos a empezar desde el principio, planificación. Este no tiene una aplicación en particular porque puedes usar como Google Docs, que es gratis, usando con tu Gmail, escribir prácticamente tus ideas, al igual que como Windows Painter para crear tus ideas ahí, imágenes. Este, que con esa misma colaboración puedes compartirlo con tu equipo. En cuestión de contenido, está Blender, que es bien poderoso para crear tus modelos en 3D, puedes texturizar, animar y hacer muchas cosas que nosotros hacemos para realizar estos elementos de la realidad. Pueden usar GIMP, que es gratis también para editar sus imágenes, igual que la textura. Vector, que se usa a través de la web para crear esta imagen vectorizada, y Figma, que usualmente es la aplicación que nosotros usamos para crear la interfaz del usuario, para ver cómo empieza de principio a fin el proyecto en general. En cuestión de los técnicos, en los ingeniería, pues three.js y Babylon son programas donde tú puedes utilizar los modelos, los puedes ver en tiempo real en la web, que ahí puedes ver cómo funciona y si tienes que volver a ajustar algo en el modelo, que si la textura es muy grande, si el modelo está la animación no funciona muy bien, pues tienes que volver a ajuste. Por eso tienes que estar viendo, es como que prueba y error antes de poder publicarlo bien. Y solamente three.js y Babylon son para utilizar para eso. Visual Studio Code, que se utiliza para escribir el código de la aplicación en la web, que ahí utilizan lo del HTML, el JavaScript o CSS, que es un ejemplo que comenté. Está GitHub, que es una versión donde tú controlas la plataforma y ahí el equipo pues puede ver todos los códigos que está pasando y puedes compartir todo eso a través de todo el equipo que está trabajando ahí. Y A4 Niantic, que es el que nosotros usamos, es una herramienta bien poderosa de la web AR en donde ellos tienen muchas herramientas ahí que nosotros usamos, al igual que puedes utilizar para hacer pruebas. Y lo bueno de ellos también, que ellos tienen plantillas que existen en su página, que tú puedes usar como ejemplo y prueba. Que si tú quieres ver cómo las cosas funcionan, tú puedes ir a la página de ellos, puedes bajar algo que ellos ya tienen y puedes prácticamente estudiarlo. Como que, y así puedes ver exactamente cómo funciona y tú puedes también quitarle los modelos que ellos tienen, ponerle modelos tuyos y así pues, puedes ver cómo funciona en realidad y así vas aprendiendo si nunca has tocado este tipo de trabajo. Pero es gratis hasta que el proyecto sea comercial. Si lo vas a hacer comercial, ya tienes que pagarle licencias a ellos para que poder utilizar sus herramientas. Pero mientras tanto, para aprender y eso es bueno porque es totalmente gratis. Pero todo esto que mencionaba es completamente gratis también. No, no aquí ha sido, porque también puedes usar Photoshop, Illustrator, el suite de Adobe, Maya, que son programas que ya que necesitas licencia para utilizarlos, pueden ser programas más poderosos, pero muchas cosas que esos programas tienen, estas versiones gratis que les mencioné, pueden hacer lo mismo. Este, en cuestión de prueba y ajuste, pues pueden ver los navegadores como Safari, Chrome, eh, Firefox, que utilizamos para hacer las pruebas ahí, pues como la aplicación es a través de la web, pues necesitamos usar esos navegadores para estar seguro que esa aplicación funcione de lo más bien. Y cuando se termine la prueba y los ajustes, es cuando pues lanzamos la aplicación y usamos Google Analytics para monitorear en cómo se está el uso de la interacción del usuario, para ver cómo está, este, sorry, it's like the user, the interaction for the performance, like to monitor the performance.
Está bien, está bien, está bien. Te entendieron,
Ok,
dale.
I followed a lot of that.
ok. Ahora, para que no solamente son los programas, pero uno tiene que estar bien consciente que uno necesita para que esto funcione. Porque los programas son una cosa, pero también son el empaque físico. Como todo, el empaque debe ser plano, cilíndrico y cónico. El lado que se está rastreando debe ser principalmente una de estas formas de superficie, aunque se pueden aproximar en cierta medida. Porque la idea es que la cámara nada más ve la etiqueta o el sello que esté, esté completamente fija, que no se pueda arrugar ni doblar, porque la idea es que tú puedas tratar de crear una experiencia fluida. El empaque también, como mencioné, tiene que ser físico para pruebas también y calibración, porque para probar un paquete o marcador de la realidad aumentada, realizamos pruebas en que el paquete real durante nuestra fase también sea un control de calidad. Estar seguro que todo esté, que cuadre y tenga un buen seguimiento. Y no solamente el empaque físico necesitamos, también necesitamos el empaque digital del sello. El programa de la realidad aumentada tiene un marcador en su código que es una representación simplificada de la imagen real que aparece en el empaque. Este marcador se deriva de los archivos del diseño del empaque. Se necesitan archivos digitales, como en este caso puse ejemplos de Illustrator Photoshop, para poder crear este marcador. Porque prácticamente lo que la cámara está siguiendo está viendo el empaque digital y está tratando de reconocer ese empaque digital con el producto físico para conectar con los dos, para que así pueda seguir el empaque lo más pegado posible y no haya errores. Ahora, en cuestión del empaque también, si eres un diseñador, no solamente en cuestión de realidad aumentada, sino también el diseñador en sí, es bueno saberlo para cuando vayas diseñando ideas para cualquier otro tipo de mercado, portadas o cosas así, para que funcione para la realidad aumentada, tienes que estar pendiente en ciertas cosas. El seguimiento de los objetos se basa en puntos distintivos dentro de los detalles de una imagen, por lo que un alto contraste es importante, tratar de evitar patrones repetitivos o espacios en blanco. Aquí a la izquierda, puedes ver un ejemplo que es malo y bueno. A la izquierda tú ves que el patrón es bien repetitivo, que tiene muchas líneas, pero como no tiene un punto exactamente donde puede distinguir, la cámara no va a saber dónde distinguir para seguir esa imagen bien y se va a estar moviendo por todas partes y no vas a poder crear esa experiencia única. Al contrario, como esta revista de David's Bridal, aquí hay diferentes puntos distintivos y mucho contraste donde puedes ver el logo arriba de la portada, puedes ver abajo texto abajo a la izquierda, a la derecha el QR code y puedes ver dentro de la imagen, pues gente en una boda bailando, pero hay diferentes puntos distintivos que es fácil que hace la cámara que pueda ver y pegarse. Ahora a la derecha, en cuestión de evitar espacios en blanco, porque en este caso puse el ejemplo de 19 Crimes, en donde está el logo solo, que no ves nada, pues la idea es que cuando tú estás tratando de crear una experiencia, que la experiencia sea solamente en el producto en específico, que tú no quieres que la experiencia sea a todo producto genérico, al menos que sea la intención, claro. Pero en este caso, la idea es siempre tratar de mantener la etiqueta que sea con distintos juntos para que la cámara identifique ese producto en particular. Por eso a la derecha puedes ver que tiene el logo de 19 Crimes, pero le estamos demostrando a la cámara que tiene que buscar puntos distintivos como la cara de Drácula, hay diferentes colores y texturas en la imagen que se le hace fácil a la cámara distinguir y seleccionar.
Miguel,
Dímelo.
una pregunta.
Ajá.
Bueno, aquí Pablo pregunta cómo se convence a una empresa que el servicio de AR marketing puede apoyar a su negocio. ¿Cuándo preguntar cómo esto puede ayudar a vender?
Al final de la presentación, mi compañero Pete va a estar hablando sobre eso, en cómo puede ayudar en cuestión del negocio y cómo puede aumentar eso a las ventas. So, ya justamente al final, cuando terminemos, vas a estar viendo y esa pregunta se te va a contestar.
Perfecto, Pablo, ya no te preocupes.
Este, pero sí, una cosa que tomar en cuenta, aunque la cámara parezca que puede ver en color, porque eso es lo que uno ve, en realidad la cámara solamente ve en blanco y negro. Así que crear la misma etiqueta con diferentes tonalidades no va a funcionar muy bien. Pero hay alternativas hay soluciones alternativas que uno puede hacer. En este caso puse ejemplo aquí de la botella de Diana, que tiene tres etiquetas diferentes, pero como puedes ver, cada una tiene su propio color. Pero como la cámara ve en blanco y negro, si tú creas una experiencia única por cada sello, pues como no pueden distinguir el color, pues la cámara va a pensar, ok, este puede ser este mismo y va a cometer un error. Pero para que evitar ese error en el usuario, en el interfaz del usuario, nosotros creamos una pantalla en donde tú seleccionas el producto que está a punto de ver. En este caso, pues, ¿en qué botella de vino tú tienes? Y pusimos tres categorías en las que tú escoges la que tú tengas. Y ahí estás bien seguro que, aunque pues, la etiqueta tenga diferentes colores, pero estás seguro que la experiencia que tú creas va a estar en el producto adecuado.
Mm.
También tratar de evitar, pues, que la superficie no sea reflectante, pues usualmente las superficies de mate son las mejores que funcionan. Lo que es papel metálico, superficies brillantes, botellas transparentes o superficies reflectantes generan interferencias en la etiqueta, lo que dificulta su seguimiento o impide el seguimiento por completo. Y aquí puse ejemplo, pues, en esta botella a la izquierda extrema de 19 Crimes, el sello está de la señora detrás del cristal, que usualmente por el refraction de la botella, pues, o el reflejo, pues, de la luz, puede que la cámara no pueda seguir bien lo que está viendo. La lata de Pepsi, en este caso, pues, completamente plateada, pues puedes ver que o sea, va a ser un poco difícil distinguir porque la luz pues, se va a mover por todas partes y como tú estás tratando de seguir una etiqueta en particular, pues esa luz se le apaga en el frente y no vas a poder seguir. En este caso también la botella con el pulpo es transparente también, la imagen no va a ser la misma con la que tú le presentas la etiqueta, eso tampoco la va a seguir. Ahora, la bolsa de Doritos, aquí la bolsa de papa o camisa, pues, para algo que se pueda arrugar o no ser plano, también el rastreador se despegará y puede tener problemas. Pero hay excepciones. Cuando vayas creando la interfaz del usuario, puede que funcione cuando tú le dices al usuario que tiene que, cuando termine de comer la bolsa de papita o la camisa, que tiene que aplastar y poner la bolsa de papas plana o la camisa que la estire para que la experiencia también se pueda hacer. So, no es que sea imposible, pero siempre hay alternativas, pero tienes que estar consciente sobre eso, en donde pues, tienes que decirle al usuario.
Yeah, like the alignment will have be a little bit off, because we can't track to something that's going to be really flexible. We'll usually
Ujú.
have the thing floating in front, and it can generally recognize the pattern on a bag of chips because the chips have enough air in them when they're before they're, in their pre-eaten state that people can track like that bag of chips or a t-shirt if it's top, if it's not really wrinkled and folded over on the pattern. As long as the pattern's visible, it can
Ya.
be kind of variable, and then we'll just float the actual illusion in front of it rather than have it really aligned to all the folds and things like that.
Yep, lo que dijo Pete. Y ahora vamos a estar demostrándole unos ejemplos de realidad aumentada basada en marcadores. Aquí, como puedes ver, estamos utilizando la revista de David Bright o Wink, donde puedes ver cuando escaneas la revista, la portada, te enseña un poquito del contenido que vas a estar viendo o donde te estás viendo abrir la revista. Que la idea de también de crear estos tipos de experiencias es que tratar de crear una experiencia fluida, que parezca que es parte del mismo producto. Por eso cuando tú ves cómo se la magia producto que hace una transición directamente de la revista y tú parece que estás abriendo la revista sin tener que abrirla intencionalmente. Y eso es lo
Ujú.
que hace la magia de la realidad aumentada. Aquí hay un buen ejemplo en donde que yo comenté anteriormente sobre la superficie que tiene muchos reflejos, y también el ejemplo de las caritas. Este es del SLX que nosotros hicimos, en donde nosotros estamos siguiendo la carita, pero como mencioné que la cámara nada más ve en blanco y negro, aquí teníamos que también crear seleccionar un tipo de producto para saber exactamente qué sabor es el que tú tienes y tú seleccionas el que tú tienes y puedes ver la experiencia adecuada con el producto adecuado. Y pues la experiencia sale fluida porque cuando escanea el producto con la experiencia adecuada, pues la carita azul, por ejemplo, en este caso, abre la boca y hace un tipo de animación bien nítida, y parece que es parte de la lata, de la experiencia del producto. Pero la lata es bien reflectiva y también le decimos al usuario que trate de ir a un lugar bien iluminado, donde no haya mucha reflexión, para tratar de evitar de que la experiencia, pues, se mueva mucho y no tenga esa experiencia única. So, también tú le dices todo eso al usuario en un proceso de cuando vayas a hacer la experiencia. Este, aquí hay una experiencia interesante donde estamos siguiendo la botella de Papa Spelar de ron, donde el producto en sí no es completamente cilíndrico, pero tiene un poco de esa forma, que como quiera puede seguir. La diferencia es que aquí no es tan fluida porque no es del mismo empaque, sino la experiencia sale fuera del empaque. Y cuando tú escaneas la botella, vas a ver que sale la medalla del gallo y dentro de la medalla del gallo sale el libro. Que también lo que quiero demostrar aquí es que no te tienes que regir en un solo estilo de imaginación dentro del empaque, sino también puedes ser creativo y tratar de pensar otra manera también fuera del empaque, que no hay limitaciones y el cielo es el límite, como uno dice. Es cuestión de creaciones. Eso es trial and error, como uno dice. Y aquí son otro ejemplo de las combinaciones, pues, en la etiqueta de 19 Crime, donde tú ves el criminal que toma vida y empieza a hablar de sus crímenes en el pasado. Aquí en el medio de Rebel Wines vemos que la etiqueta es así con esta ciudad y de momento se anima y sale una destrucción bien nítida, que tú puedes ser bien creativo en estas cosas. Y con Jim Beam es una combinación de las dos, donde tú ves que fluye en la etiqueta, pero también traemos elementos 3D fuera de la etiqueta. O sea, es como que puedes hacer todo tipo de combinación para todo tipo de experiencia.
Ujú.
Y no solamente es un tipo de experiencia también, pero también puede hacer juegos que interactúen con el usuario, que eso también hace que la experiencia sea bien única y diferente. Aquí en la botella a la izquierda de Phantom Wines tienes que poner todas las letras juntas que formen la palabra de BOGO y estás creando un tipo de rompecabezas para descifrar lo que está adentro. Aquí escaneamos una lata de Coca-Cola y está prácticamente peleando con los osos polares aquí con unas bolas de nieve. Y con Jack Daniels nos está contando la historia a través de un pop-up book style, en donde tú interactúas con el cuento de ellos y vas viendo en cómo ellos hacen su bebida. Y en Chick-fil-A, que es algo que quiero también, un ejemplo que quiero enfatizar, en donde, que le había mencionado sobre la bolsa de papa, en este caso es una bolsa de hamburguesa que tú compras en la tienda, en el restaurante, perdón, y que usualmente la bolsa, pues, viene arrugada cuando sacas el hamburguesa y eso, pero tienes que estar seguro que está plano para que siga muy bien la experiencia. Y como pueden ver, la cámara se está moviendo, pero tú ves que la experiencia se queda bien pegada a la bolsa de papa, digo, a la bolsa de hamburguesa. Como pueden ver que la cámara se está moviendo porque la persona le está dando como que tapping a la pantalla y tú puedes ver que se lo sigue muy bien. So, todo es posible, pero tienes que estar consciente, pues, de las limitaciones que uno tiene que tomar. Y aquí son otros formatos que no necesariamente sean directamente con el paquete, porque a veces como pues, hay situaciones en donde el paquete no puede ser seguido por alguna razón sea reflectivo, que el diseño del paquete sea bien, bien con mucho, como que no tenga esa forma cilíndrica, cónica y eso, pues otro tipo de forma que quizá la cámara no puede seguir, pero no significa que no pueda hacer la experiencia. En este caso, pues cogemos la experiencia y tomamos la experiencia y la ponemos de otra manera. Y tú puedes usar la experiencia que se active en cualquier superficie abierta y plana, que también no te tienes que limitar en el paquete en sí, también lo puedes hacer fuera del paquete. I know, Pete, you wanted to mention something more about this category of the
Yeah,
smart
I
contract.
mean, the one thing I was going to say is sometimes people don't have the packaging, and although the point is to drive them to the store shelves or to the point of purchase, and have them have the packaging in hand to convert a sale, very often it is relevant to have some branded experience that maybe you could share out to other people to draw them in. And so for like, the Snoop Dogg thing or for the Almond Breeze thing there is pictured, those don't require having, a carton or a can or a bottle or a box of any of the product. These particular experiences, all you need is an open space and you're prompted to try it. Then you have a branded experience that tells you about the brand. And then there's a call to action saying if you want to see more experiences, then go check out all these other experiences on our product. And then that is a way of driving people to the point of sale, getting them interested and engaging with them. So we kind of mix it up sometimes, and give them an experience sort of for free without necessarily requiring to have the brand in the hand. But then ultimately the goal is to get them to connect to the product in the store shelves. The other thing I was going to say, and I was picking up on a little bit of what you were saying, is that it's really important for us to have segmented experiences because you have a limited amount of eyes and ears and attention. And keep in mind, people are holding this thing like in a kind of, precarious sort of position where they're doing this. Maybe they're in a supermarket, maybe they're at home, but they're kind of, drinking a bottle of wine with others and handing it around. So we keep these experiences short and segmented. That's not to say that we don't have reels and reels of experiences, especially for things like 19 Crimes. But we'll have like, say for Coca-Cola, we'll have 4 little mini experiences. Some are gamified, some are performances, things like that. And you can see each one in a complete form. And then if you want to return, maybe you see a second experience that you didn't see before. So there's rewards, surprise and delight to go back. But it's not necessarily something that you have to see. The worst thing is if we made like a 10-minute long experience and
Yeah.
90% of the people clocked out after, 40 seconds and didn't complete it. So we try to design these things. In that way, it's kind of similar to a television ad. There'd be no good television programming if all the ads were half an hour long. So I think we want to try to keep this brief and concise and then have segmented experiences because they are fun to do. But the gameplay, we usually have like a level that you play and you get through a whole level. And if you want to continue, sure, you can continue, play the second level, but that's up to the user. But once they're out of the first level, we have the opportunity to share it or to link out to other things or play again and play the next level. So we try to give people little breathers because we know that people's times and eyes are limited. And then we also know that this kind of thing is not something people want to do for 10 minutes at a time. So,
Yeah.
although some people do, which is crazy, but they do. I don't know why, but they do it.
One question that I have, Pete, is you mentioned that for example, the Ask the Dog Father option that you have on the right, it doesn't need a package in front of you. I mean, how does it get triggered then?
So we can, there are examples, probably videos of our examples on our, Vimeo page, but there are live examples out there in the world of things that we've done. What it'll do, it'll prompt you to point at an open space in front of you. That could be a tabletop, that could be a lawn in front of a grassy area in front of you.
Okay.
That could be a room with an open space. It'll start to track that space. You'll see little dots appear on the ground and give you feedback that it sees that surface. Once it sees the surface, it says tap to start, and it'll anchor that
Mhm.
3D illusion in space, and you can move around it, you can move back and forth, and it's anchored on there. So at that point, it looks like it's part of the room or part of the space in front of you, and gives you that illusion of like a moving sculpture in front of you.
A very nice application for real estate, for example.
Sure. And I mean, yeah, like there are examples, like you see all these examples of 3D, what Matterport type of scans of rooms and things like that they have on real estate sites where you can look around the room. That media would play just as well on a desktop, so you can look at it like an architectural model and
Yeah.
be able to look down onto it as if you had a little dollhouse or toy house on your dining room table or something like that. So that's a great idea.
Okay.
Aquí hay otros ejemplos de formato de contenido de la realidad aumentada. Esto no es particular de un paquete, sino otra manera de, en vez de hacer animaciones en 3D, también hay formatos que uno captura a los actores en vivo y nosotros capturamos a los actores de forma holográfica o volumétrica en la realidad aumentada. Y tú puedes poner esos actores, al igual como vi la experiencia anterior, pues puedes ponerlo en el mundo real. Es como si estuviesen al frente tú y ahí tú puedes recrear historias que pasaron hace muchos años atrás, y puedes recrear diferentes escenarios y puede ser muy creativo, que también está esa opción, que no necesariamente siempre tiene que ser este, personajes en 3D en cuestión de tú hacerlo from scratch, de cero. I know, Pete, you wanted to mention something about this as well.
Well, I mean, I just off the top of my head, the one in the middle is on a bottle of 19 Crimes, and they're all sort of Barbie sized, around the bottle, having a little episode. We had these little episodes that happen around 19 Crimes. This one is no longer active. That's up to the company, but we made this content for them in 3D, and those are real actors acting in a real space. We made CGI props around them and things like that, so it put them into context. But all of that kind of rotated in around the bottle and was like a hologram that it's attached to the product, to the bottle. And the ones on either side are something we're doing for more of a museum style project. And rather than all the people being this big, they
So life
appear in
size.
life size. And this is an example again, Victor, of the markerless in the two on the right and left, where we don't have a bottle or product that it's attached to, that
Yeah.
it's fixed to, but instead it prompts the user at these historical sites. This is part of a civil rights trail thing that'll be coming out this year. And it has historical figures at these places within the trail, the civil rights trail, and it'll have a sign and say, this is where this happened. Scan here to have it come to life, and then somebody from the past will appear, ghost-like in front of you and have a reenactment of what happened, and you can walk around them. And what's nice about that is that's in the context of the actual historical site, so that you can really have these things sort of come to life, and I don't know if you all have seen like the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. They recorded Holocaust survivors, holographically, and before they passed away. And this was like really early on in this sort of technology, where they had to have a special projection method and a room where you can see it and all this type of thing. Well, now we can do this type of thing on the phone, and reproject these performances back into the real world in the context of where you're walking in real life. And it's an incredibly powerful way to view history, I think, and it gives people a lot of opportunities. We're also doing a project now that I can't really talk too much about, for a brand where we have concerts, little mini concerts by pop stars that appear, and they'll appear, in your room, and you'll have so and so, showing up and performing, and that's kind of cool because you can walk around them. They're there. You can take pictures of them with, your friends in the background. So all of that's kind of a nice way to kind of bring the celebrity and all of that type of thing that's so intrinsic to advertising into these types of augmented experiences.
Excellent. That's great. That's a nice idea.
Y aquí estos son también filtros faciales de la realidad aumentada. pero estos son más rígidos a las plataformas como eh, Instagram, TikTok, que nosotros también podemos crear ese tipo de filtro también, que es otro tipo de realidad aumentada. En este caso, pues, la corona con la muchacha, y también puedes hacer juegos con la realidad aumentada. Pues, él está atrapando almendras con la boca, que hay diferentes maneras, no solamente con el paquete, sino también puedes hacer filtros en diferentes plataformas, que no hay límites para hacer esas cosas. Pete, you want to say something about this too?
I was just gonna say, and you might have said it. I didn't. I didn't
No,
catch.
it's fine.
I was just gonna say that this is the typical format for a lot
Mhm.
of social AR. You know, Spark AR for Facebook and Instagram, or TikTok, or you know, Snap and what have you, with the facial filters and games and masks and things like that. We do that.
Mhm.
Um, but again, it's disassociated from the packaging and the
Mhm.
product. So it just promotes brand awareness than actually having experience on the package. But we do it, and we sometimes add that on as another module within the experience that people can play with and have, you know, some fun with. But we can do this on web AR as well, so we can share it across all social media platforms. And using platforms like Eighth Wall, that allows us to just set up a little tile that people can click on and click right into a web domain that is controlled by the brand that has these types of experience right off the bat. And then that's a fun thing for people to do. And then it gets them to that brand's domain where they can explore and see either other experiences or products or signups or any other promotions they might have.
Cool. And here I'm going to take you back to Peter so you can talk about the case study.
Thank you. Yeah.
Living pineapples.
Yeah. So, you know, I think I mentioned, you know, like with 19 Crimes, that's our longest running uh, uh,
Brand?
brand, you know, partnership that we have thus far. And it's been going for, I think, since 2017, beginning of 2017 is when that started. So it's been a minute that's been going on. And it's a great case study for AR in that when we started it, and this was back in native app days, since then we've migrated all the 19 Crimes experiences to the web. But on the native app application initially, even when people had to download an app to make all this work, um, we had, I think at this point, it's over 1 billion impressions on the native app. We had well over 80 million activations on individual bottles, which means 80 million people picked up a bottle and their sales went up by 80 million bottles of wine. So it catapulted this brand from sort of lower 30% of their brand holdings. Like Treasury Wine Estates owns, if you're not familiar with them, they own globally like 70 brands of wines and spirits. And 19 Crimes was, you know, a fairly, you know, middle of the road player for them for a while. But once the AR campaign came out, it jettisoned up to the top brand of all their brand holdings. And that was with legacy things like Stag's Leap and Behringer and all these other brands that they hold. And it catapulted beyond those. And so they had well over 250% sales increase within the first 6 months. And that is sustained over time. People would record the AR interactions and then share those on social media to millions of secondary views. And we expanded the campaign globally, and then they would launch new products off of the AR app. So they would let people know that new bottles were coming and things like this as advertised through the AR app, and that would drive people to store shelves to buy the other bottles. And then and what happened from that is people like Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart and other celebrities wanted to get involved and have their own talking wine bottles. So they got involved with 19 Crimes, and that further kind of energized sales. So we've made a number of experiences featuring those celebrities, and we did a whole thing with NBC Universal for Universal Monsters over the Halloween season last season that did really well. But all of these sort of spike interest across the whole brand holding. And we're seeing every day about 10,000 scans a day 8 years later. And when we have a new one coming out, it spikes. Suffices it, like, it goes way beyond that for periods of time. But Treasury and 19 Crimes, they understand kind of the value in that, and they've been feeding content through this sort of as a channel, and they see how all the different offerings of experiences within this sort of reinforce the whole. And that way it's lifted, even in a down market for wine in general, it's lifted 19 Crimes within the overall kind of wine market to be one of the top performers of all wines of any brand in the market. And we continue to work on things for them. Even now, there are things in progress.
Peter, is it fair
Yeah.
to say that 7 years of experience with these in all these numbers and a continuation of a trend with that brand specifically is just amazing. But anyone might say that was just the start of a trend worldwide, because I mean it's everywhere. Technology is everywhere. So
Right.
is it fair to say that the world hasn't seen the applicability of this technology yet as compared to 19 Crimes, and there might be a reason for that?
I think it's early days. So there's very much that we're on the early days, the dawn of where all this is going with mixed reality. You see devices that are, from Apple and Meta that are all about mixed reality, and they've committed to that future and burned a lot of their money trying to get there. And I think most of those devices are for early adapters. I think it's important to say that we go for the low-hanging fruit of, how powerful these devices already are and how ubiquitous they already are. And we feel like we can offer comparable experiences to what people are having at home with a device over their face to a wider variety of people across the world, and have our experiences scale larger than any of those sort of head-mounted device type of experiences have been able to scale thus far. And as such, it creates a real niche for this type of medium in a way that experiential marketing hasn't really found before, because the mobile market is able to reach so many people in ways that, say, some of the examples you saw on our reel of things that we do on screens at particular locations and things like that, those are only for the people who are at that location. And with this, we can really project it out over the world. And with the web, with mobile, and with the ubiquitousness of products and their distribution elsewhere, that's something that's really valuable, I think, to brands. The other part of it is the data. So we're able to create dashboards in real time of where people are interacting with these brands and how. And so we really get especially like in wines and spirits, you get a 3-tiered system, at least where we are, where you have distributors and buyers in between the brands and their consumers. This allows the brands to communicate directly with their consumers and to see how the consumers are interacting with their brands in real time, regionally, over time, by product, all those sorts of things. And that was very abstracted before, but the analytics we're getting are in real time and granular. And so all of these types of interactions break down the fourth wall between the user and the brand and allows a real direct communication in both ways that wasn't possible before. And so that's kind of one reason why we're real believers in this and think there's a place in the market for it.
Mhm.
Any type of phone might work for 19 Crimes, for example, or is there a certain level of technology that is just outdated and won't work for this?
Well, your grandpa's flip phone is not going to work, and or a phone with a cord on it is not going to work. But for the most part, devices from the last 2 or 3 years have an accelerometer in it. They have a camera. They run Android or iOS operating systems, and they have a decent screen. So most of those devices work pretty well. And the vast majority of them, of people who, especially the people who are more inclined to do this type of thing and who are buyers of these goods, have phones that are 1 to 3 years old that are eminently capable of doing this very well. And so I think the target audience is the people who have these phones, and there's lots of them. And so I think that's where we really are finding a sweet spot. And like I said, it's only getting easier as time moves on, because these types of experiences and the platforms they're delivered on make it more and more streamlined. I would urge people who are interested in being creators to go to the Eighth Wall site, like Miguel said, and look at the templates of creation for this, because it's easier than one might think to start playing with this technology and create things on your own phone that work. And so I think that's a fun way to sort of explore and see what's possible. But as far as tactic and what our ethos is, we really are about making these experiences as seamless and integrated into reality as possible. And so that's why we went over all these things about what good markers are, what bad markers are, and segmenting the experiences and lighting and things like this, like how they fit. Do they wobble when you're moving the thing around? Do they track really well so they look like they're really part of the world or part of the object? These things are really important to us, because if it's done badly, it looks like a B movie, and we want it to look like a AAA tentpole movie out of Hollywood. We don't want it to look like something that was on TV in 1975, and I think that's part of the production value is part of it.
Mhm.
And that's where people like Miguel come in to make it look really good. But that's kind of part of the value system that we have here to add value to the process.
Great. Excellent.
Yeah. And with that, we end our class.
Yeah. And I want to thank Victor and Stephanie at Nova. I didn't I did a bad. I didn't introduce you guys at the beginning, but thank you so much for hosting us today and giving us the opportunity to talk about our work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter and Miguel.
Thank you.
Creo que con esto estamos terminando este Masterclass. Quiero recordarles que en Nova les traemos contenido y les traemos empresas de calibre muy alto en el tema de tecnología, en el tema de mercadeo. Dentro de poco ustedes pueden ver este material subido. Stephanie, nuestra gerente de animación digital, va a estar a cargo de eso. Nova es una firma consultora que les da la posibilidad de poder desarrollar prospectación de nuevos clientes y retención. Así es que si tienen el tiempo, por favor visiten www.clavillo.com con K y con B pequeña, B de Víctor, clavillo.com, y ustedes pueden ver ahí que somos partners de Clavillo y podemos utilizar este tipo de tecnología y podemos utilizar una comunicación en tiempo real con un centro de información que tiene 900 millones de perfiles para poder tomar control sobre la opinión de sus marcas y de su mercado. Así es que, de nuevo, muchas gracias a Peter, muchas gracias a Miguel. Miguel y Stephanie y Miguel, te dejo las últimas palabras para que te despidas.
No, pues también quiero dar
Sí,
las gracias. Ah, perdóname,
bueno,
Federico.
sí. Bueno, más que todo, thank you, Peter y Miguel. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you, Peter, for accepting my LinkedIn invite. And we wouldn't make it without accepting that. And the core essence, of course, of AR, and with all the benefits that it helps to bridging the gap between physical and digital. It breathes life in brands, narratives, and also empowers customers to visualize products in their own spaces, overcoming size and scale limitations. I mean, it's amazing. So estamos muy agradecidos con todos ustedes los que nos acompañaron el día de hoy. Qué bueno que les gustó y no se olviden de poder seguir, darnos follow en los social media para que puedan tener más accesos exclusivos sobre más masterclasses que se van a venir este año aquí con Nova Event. Entonces, Peter y Miguel, thank you so much again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
It's been
Take
an
care.
honor.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.